Welcome, dear travelers, to the Sisters of the Shire podcast. I'm Abby, one of your trusty guides, and I'm joined by my partner in adventure, Ashley. Today we are continuing our journey into the final section of the Silmarillion, aptly named Of the Rings of Power and the Third Age.
If this is your first time joining us, or if you're new to the Silmarillion, we really recommend starting from episode 1 to not only get acquainted with how we do things around here, but also to learn all the essential background knowledge that will be key to navigating through this complicated tale.
But don't let that intimidate you. Together we will help you not only learn, but remember all the names, places, and their significance to the story. New to the Silmarillion, read the Silmarillion and want to understand it better? Let's start down the path, and don't forget to bring a map. It's very important. We've got them. We've got maps. We've got extras. There's a lot of maps.
We'll hand them out.
How are you?
I'm good. We are a Nightmare Before Christmas household because today is my daughter's birthday party, so it's all decked out in Nightmare. My dark soul child.
I wish that I could, you know what? I'm in charge. I can throw myself a themed birthday party. Why did we have to stop when we're adults, you know?
I don't know, but adult birthdays suck.
I know. My husband is having a big birthday this year in like 3 weeks. And I was like, what do you want to do? And he's like, and I'm like, dang it. Like, neither of us have ideas.
Yeah.
And so we're like, how come we got so boring? When did that happen?
I don't know. One of my birthdays, I'm like, you know what? I just want to have a Lord of the Rings marathon. And if anyone wants to come, they can. And then it was like during COVID and everyone's like, yeah, we really shouldn't come. And I'm like, that's okay. That's fine. I'll just watch it by myself.
I'll hang out with my 9 best friends.
Yes.
We're also doing Harry Potter marathon. So if you hear some magic in the background, that's our
and then I also have a Lizzie with me too. Oh, nice.
Hi, Lizzie.
How far can you get with your kids?
We read all the books.
Do they go? Right, but can they watch all of them?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, no judgment. There's like Lizzie, I can't even imagine her watching 3. Like, I can't.
So my rule with Harry Potter and some other books too is that we have to read them before we can watch the movies. And so we watched
that's fair. That's a newer rite of passage right there.
We read the first 4 like 2 years ago, 2-3 years ago.
Okay.
And that's where we kind of took a pause because my oldest was like 7 or 8. And after number 4, it just like straight like face plants into darkness.
Yeah.
It goes so dark so fast where I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So we kind of stopped. We kind of put a pause. So they only could watch 1 through 4 for like 3 years. And I was like, I love Harry Potter, but I'm also like, I'm losing my mind. I want to watch the other ones. Like, I can't just keep going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to finish it. And so
just because 4 is so cringy.
Yeah, last year we finished all the books. We read 5, 6, 7. So we finally got to watch all of the Harry Potter movies. And so the kids have seen all of them. Luna is not a fan of the spiders, and she's also not a fan of the Dementors and like baby Voldemort, if that makes sense. The like weird baby Voldemort at the end. Not a fan of that. She doesn't run away and she doesn't cry. She just kind of like puts her head in my shoulder like during those scenes. Yeah. But my kids are kind of cool with like they're cool with stuff with like that. Like if they don't feel comfortable with it, they know to like just not look, like they'll close their eyes or whatever. They're very self-regulating with the fear of stuff like that, which I'm thankful for. Like I didn't have to calm anyone down or, you know what I mean? Like it was okay. I mean,
it wasn't like my childhood
of what movie?
Well, I mean, there are movies today that I'm watching and I'm like, oh, that's what happens because again, 4 older brothers. And so I was always watching movies that were older than I should have probably been watching. And so they would be just like, hey, Ashley, can you go get us a snack from the fridge? And I'm like, oh, sure. And I just walk up and go. And I'm like, oh, they were saving me from a scary part.
Oh, cute.
So there's movies today. I'm like, oh, okay. I get it now. Like, that makes so much more sense. I always wondered what happened during that part.
Aww.
Like, I think Raiders of the Lost Ark was one, and Last Crusade. Just like the face melting, things like that. I forgot what other movies there were, but just stuff like that where it's just like a bit maybe much for a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. We've just went through all the Indiana Jones as well, and Luna opted out. Nice. And I was like, that's fine. But
that's fine.
She watched some of them, but not all of them. So I'm like, that's cool. You know your mind and like what you can handle. Yeah. Proud of you. So
yeah. Well, we're not here to talk about scary movies. We are here to talk about a scary book.
It's spooky season. I hope everybody's enjoying their spooky season.
Yes. Actually, if you go back to our older episodes, I think around this time I got to talk to the actress who plays one of the Nazgals in the Rings of Power show. If you want to go back to our older episodes, the Nazgals. That's their nickname. I forgot her real name. I'm sorry. That's going to bother me. But one of the white witches, the main one that was like a shapeshifter one. A lot nicer in person, I swear. If you want to look back at our older episodes.
Just her eyeballs.
No, but it's funny. She would do random things on the screen with her fingers, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you like, it's her. Like, it really is her.
She's a witch. I knew it. You're a witch.
Yes.
Okay, I'm excited for
this episode. Yes. How much do you remember of last episode?
We talked about Gondor and how Gondor became what it was when we see it, when we are introduced to Gondor in the Lord of the Rings movies and trilogy. Mm-hmm. So it was like a bustling, happy city. And then what was the pinnacle thing that made it like the plague? That's right. The plague from that blew in the wind from I think it came from Mordor personally. I think Morgoth, Sauron vibes there.
Yeah. For sure. And that killed the king and dwindled the population. Have I seen Mordor?
I mean, if you look at Mordor, there's like no vegetation. Like I feel
for sure.
Like that place had a plague as well, and it might
already. Yeah. Sure. So that dwindled the population, killed the main king. Where they went from like 3 cities to like 1. And that left Minas Ithil, Isildur's old tower city, deserted. And that's when the Nazgul swooped in and they're like, I feel like this aesthetic could really work for us. It's got everything we need. But we do need to rename it because this like Tower of the Moon, that's a bit too cheery for us. How about Minas Morgul? And it will now be a place of dread.
Did they cast a vote with the orcs and stuff? They're like throwing in their like name suggestions in a hat, and they're like, "It's gonna be Tim's place." Dang it, Tim! We said no. We told you this before. This is not yours. I just wanted something named after me.
That rock right there. It will be Tim's rock.
Fine, you can have the rock, Tim. This is not, that's what you get, okay? Are you happy? I guess. All the rest of the votes are like, he can't even read them. He's like, well, who wrote this? I can't. Come on, guys. We got to really work on our handwriting here.
Bill, you got to work on that handwriting.
Come on, man.
So then Osgiliath, one of the other cities, was once the united city between Isildur and Anarion. Now it is a ruin, and it's kind of the middle territory that is just fought over for centuries. It becomes kind of the line the river Anduin is, going through, that the orcs try and, pass over, and then the, Gondorians fight them back, and then the Gondorians try and take it back, and the orcs, it's constantly disputed over territory. And that's why it's in such ruins when we see it in the Lord of the Rings. Then Minas Anor.
Favorite toy. Like,
yes. No, I want it. Yes. Yeah. So then Minas Anor, everyone kind of just holds up there instead. The last remaining people of Gondor just fortify that one city, and they're like, you know what? We could use a new name too. I heard they renamed Minas Ithil. So we're going to rename our city too. We are known now as Minas Tirith, and that's what we're going to do.
Wow.
So Minas Anor, once Anarion's tower, is now Minas Tirith, which is the main city of Gondor that we know from the Lord of the Rings movies.
They built it out of the mountain, right? Because it looks like just a mountain or a cliff with buildings on it for Minas Tirith, right?
Right. It doesn't go into detail here. It just made it sound like it was just a tower. And then when they're remaking it, they're like, you know what? And we'll add another tower on top of this tower. So the whole beautiful kind of tiered into the rock mountainside thing that we get to see in the movie, I don't know where he got that inspiration from, because they did not give a good description here in the Silmarillion.
I swear
there could have been,
that Tolkien did a drawing or something of it, right?
He probably
I'm going to check.
You check. And then the Line of Kings ends when our man Earnur disappeared after accepting a challenge from the Witch King of Angmar. He's like, I challenge you to a duel, and he smacks him in the face with his spiky gauntlet. And then the Nazgul somehow trick him, and then he gets taken captive and is never seen ever again. And that's why the Line of Kings ends, and which is why the stewards, like Denethor, took over ruling Gondor.
So I found a picture of a Tolkien drawing, and it kind of looks like, no offense, Tolkien, no offense, it kind of looks like a cake. Like a layer cake.
Sure.
Like small, like big round bottom layer, and then like it just keeps getting smaller and smaller until the top. And then there's like a
so
little
that kind of is what Minas Tirith looks like in the movies. Yeah.
Yeah. But it just looks like a little... his drawing is a little bit more crudely drawn, so it looks like a little... a very poorly constructed cake. Sorry, Tolkien. It looks like it collapsed on itself a little bit, but probably tastes good.
Probably tastes like bitterness and...
Plague,
yeah. We also learned that the Rohirrim of Rohan becomes established during this time, and they are allies of Gondor, and they help them when they can. And we learned that the Nazgul did settle in Minas Morgul, and they never crossed the river or reveal themselves to men until Sauron returned.
So they kind of hid away in their like creepy hideout, creepy what's that called? Clubhouse. The creepy clubhouse.
I think I put on the Spotify question last episode, like, what do you think they were doing in the meantime? Like, scrapbooking their previous lives. They were casting spells. They were decorating. They were working on their a cappella choir. Yeah. They were they got a loom. Oh my gosh, do you remember the Muppets Theater Aesop's Fables when he's doing the loom for the Emperor's New Clothes?
Yep, exactly.
Sorry, that was a hidden treasure from our childhood. Deep cut. If you know that, you are among our people.
Maybe they were choreographing their moves like when they were attacking the hobbits, where they were all coming in together. They're like, okay, we have to be in sync. Like, and 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, Terry, you were early again. I told you, we cannot go that fast. We have to do this together or we're not going to be scary. We have to be menacing.
Sorry. I tripped on my cloak. I knew I made it too big. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay? I'm sorry.
I can't see out of my hood very well.
They do Tai Chi. That's my other idea.
If they did Tai Chi, I feel like they'd be more calm and not so violent, you know? It's a very like calming...
Well, they're pretty quiet.
I think they were dance coordinating, honestly.
Okay.
I mean, how did they get to be so coordinated and so timing for their attacks? They were pretty much like a dance routine, you know? They had to
yeah. Maybe they were raising their like winged snake creature things.
Aww, from babies.
Right? They were like teaching them tricks and naming them and
potty training them, you know.
Oh my gosh. That was a bad month.
Yeah.
And that is how the tower turned from white to black very quickly.
Gross. That's why no one.
All right. Well,
they're like, that place stinks.
Definitely. So this week, we're actually going to be covering more things that will be familiar and vital to the stories in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. So let's start off by talking about, I almost said your man, but he's not a man because he chose to be an elf, Elrond.
My dude, Elrond.
Your dude. Quote, Master Elrond abode in Eladris, or Rivendell, and he gathered there many elves and other folk of wisdom and power from among all the kindreds of Middle-earth.
So he still has some pull, friendliness-wise, that he can, like, be friends with the dwarves and the men, and they still respond to him and come when he asks them to.
Yeah, but I feel like there's another word for this. If someone else knows, that would be great. But it's almost like a college, like where the greatest minds come to share ideas and just kind of discuss things. And like I said, I can't think of another word for it. But I feel like that's kind of what... Think tank, yeah. I feel like that's what Elrond kind of made Rivendell. He was, so open to all different races, men, elves, dwarves, that I imagine it must have felt like a safe space where they could trade ideas and skills together. And that's kind of a rare thing to have in Middle-earth because there's so much animosity between the races. But in Rivendell, it was a safe space.
That's why Elrond is rad, guys. Elrond is pretty great.
Yeah. It also became a kind of library or genealogy center as well, because, quote, he preserved through many lives of men the memory of all that had been fair.
So he was trying to keep the history so maybe people can look back and say like, oh, we tried this already and that didn't work, or...
Exactly, yes. And... I imagine if you had immortality, it might come in handy to have a record of the good times and the bad times to show those with shorter memories and lifespans, like the men, like you said, what works and didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I feel like Rivendell could be more. So let's add to our college, library, genealogy center, a therapy office. Because I feel like that's what we really need to work on. That's the foundation. Let's work on the mental health.
A lot of these characters could probably still be alive if they went to therapy. A lot of marriages could have been saved if they just talked out their feelings.
Quote, and the house of Elrond was a refuge for the weary and the oppressed and a treasury of good counsel and wise lore.
I feel like Elrond would be a good listener. I feel like he would be he would be very calming to talk to.
Right. So he made it not only a perfect place to heal your mind, but also, he's going to teach you some history and give you some ideas about life and while he's at it, So it's just a really good place overall.
He's seen some things, he can give some wisdom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And among the frequent guests of the College of Rivendell were the heirs of Isildur. Remember, Rivendell was an important place for the heirs of Isildur, as it is where Isildur's youngest son, Valandil, and his wife, who of course we call Ellen, were kept safe from the Battle of the Lost Alliance and all the events that happened afterwards, like with Isildur and his son's deaths. After that, I'm assuming Valandil went off and ruled the North Kingdom of Arnor for a bit, but Rivendell always seemed to be open to him and his descendants. Quote, "In that house were harbored the heirs of Isildur in childhood and old age, because of the kinship of their blood with Elrond himself, and because he knew in his wisdom that one should come of their line to whom a great part was appointed in the last deeds of that age."
So they knew it was a special family.
Yes.
They had to keep safe. Don't go do stupid stuff.
Yeah.
Don't kill off the last of your line.
But I also love this, that he wanted to keep an eye on this line, because if you kind of think about it, and it's hard because elves and men are just so different as far as their timelines. But his brother Elros was the first king of Numenor. And somehow, possibly in Elrond's mind, that could make Isildur his distant nephew, if you think about it.
Okay.
So I also kind of love that it says that it took in the heirs of Isildur in childhood and in old age. We'll take him in the beginning and the end, and then the middle, they can go out and do whatever they want. But it kind of sounds like a daycare center,
a retirement home,
the babies and the, yes. I can just imagine Uncle Elrond trying to get toddler Isildur, the 23rd or something like that, to put his toys away or something like that, and cast them into the toy bin. No, you are just like your great great grandfather.
Or when you think about it, daycares and retirement homes are pretty much, they do the same. They do the same things. No,
there's
we can't go.
Changes on both.
It's time for nap times. No.
Yeah. Very similar. Or maybe he thought that it was something to do with Isildur's upbringing that led him to keep the One Ring. So he's like, you know what? I'm sure these heirs of Isildur are going to have to pay for Isildur's mistakes sometime or another. Karma's going to come circling around here. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to raise them right. So when they have the choice put before them, they're going to choose the right thing. Okay? I'm going to do it.
Yeah. They're good boys. They're good boys.
He raised him right.
He has one of those
quote.
In this house we praise
yes.
those
we say no to evil rings.
Yeah.
In this house we tell people about evil objects.
Yeah.
In this house no kinslaying allowed.
We listen to our friends.
Oh my gosh, you could come up with a whole thing for what that would be. Something about all kinds are welcome, including dwarves, no matter how stinky they can be.
Yeah. In this house, we clean up our mess.
In this house, we celebrate our differences.
Yeah. Yes, we need a House of Elrond sign.
Yes. Well, you know what else he has there? Quote, "And until that time came, the shards of Elendil's sword were given into the keeping of Elrond, when the days of the Dunedain darkened and they became a wandering people." So it doesn't say if Valandil took the shards of Narsil, Elendil's sword, with him when he left Rivendell. We just know that one noble squire delivered them to Valandil, and as of right now, they are still there. It doesn't say if they ever left, but they're here. And I imagine if they did take them out, these, wandering people, homeless rangers like Aragorn, it was probably hard to keep together all these little pieces of this sharp steel. Hold on. Oh, this one's poking me in the back again on my back.
Does anyone have a zip
oh no, I dropped one. So that's what's happening in Rivendell. Elrond's like, okay, I'm going to keep an eye on these heirs of Isildur. I'll let them play with the sharp fragments of this sword that I'll just hang on to. I'm sure the kids and the old guys will love to play with it.
It's a real fun puzzle.
It's a real fun puzzle. So the rest of Middle Earth, it surprisingly doesn't have a lot of elves in it. Like, I was thinking about like our old Balerian map that had like multiple realms. It was like all elves everywhere. And now we are just down to 4 major elf realms. Now, if you were to look at a map of Middle Earth, you can kind of see that we have a mountain range, the Misty Mountains to be specific, kind of down the middle.
Okay.
And then, funny enough, there are 2 elf realms on each side of these mountains.
Okay.
So to the west, or the left side of the Misty Mountains, as we just talked about, is Rivendell. But also is Mithlond, aka the Grey Havens. Now, apparently with the death of King Gil-galad, the elves of Lindon possibly drifted more over to the Grey Havens because, you know what, our leader's gone, Círdan's here, and Círdan is indestructible. That man cannot be killed, and he's also awesome. So let's go hang out with that guy. So Lindon's still there. It just seems like most of the elves are in the Grey Havens instead.
So we don't get to see those elves. We only see like them go to the like port dock area.
Yeah. So calling this a realm is calling this a realm is a bit generous, but it is kind of it's still kind of a realm in my opinion.
Is there anybody just significance who lives there, like bigger
not
names
that
people might recognize? Okay.
Just Círdan. Just Círdan, but Círdan's pretty awesome. Right. Sorry. I take it back. But their main thing is, Círdan loves the sea and he loves building boats. So anyone that is in the Grey Havens, that's kind of their job. They're the retirement community that is helping people leave Middle Earth. So they build the boats, they maintain the harbor, and they help get the elves ready to leave, that want to leave Middle Earth. They travel to the Grey Havens and then they take off from there.
Okay.
So the Grey Havens and Rivendell are the main 2 elf realms on the west side of the Misty Mountains. On the east side of the Misty Mountains, we have Greenwood the Great, aka Mirkwood. Quote, now of old, the name of the... Oh, we're going to go over that.
Isn't it spoopy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Greenwood the Great is not spoopy. Mirkwood is spoopy.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is how it started. Now of old, the name of that forest was Greenwood the Great, and its wide halls and aisles were the haunt of many beasts and of birds of bright song. And there was the realm of King Thranduil under the oak and the beech. Beech as in like beech tree, not beach like a ocean beach.
Sandy beach.
Yeah. So that is our 3rd elf realm, but that is the elf realm on the east side of the mountain. So Podcastle seems to hate us. Well, I guess I shouldn't name them by name, but too late now, Podcastle. You're on my list.
You've scorned us too many times.
I know.
To keep anonymity.
I know. Anyways, so I was last talking about the 2nd elf realm on the east side of the mountains, which is Lorien.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, in the land of Lorien, where dwelt the Lady Galadriel, a queen she was of the woodland elves, the wife of Celeborn of Doriath, yet she herself was of the Noldor, and remembered the day before days in Valinor, and she was the mightiest and fairest of all the elves that remained in Middle-earth. So let's not let that be confused, because she's not the oldest, because who's the oldest?
Círdan.
She's the mightiest, maybe in power. Elrond, I feel like, is up there. There's some pretty mighty elves up there, but as far as, I don't want to swear necessarily, but badassery, I'd say she's up there.
She's earned her place.
She has. Quote, the hidden land between Celebrant and Anduin, where the trees bore flowers of gold, and no orc or evil thing dared ever come.
it's pretty hidden away, I feel. Like in the movies, it kind of looked like it took like a special know-how to even get there.
Right. So you have these 4 elf realms. We have Rivendell, the Grey Havens, Greenwood the Great, and Lorien. Now, out of those 4, which would you say are the 2 best?
Personally, like my own opinion?
Sure.
Or out of Rivendell, Mirkwood, Lorien, and the Grey Haven area?
Yes.
I would love to be in Rivendell with Elrond because I think that would be such a cool place to be around.
Right.
Lorien kind of seemed, I mean, I'm just like going off of like what I visually saw and kind of the vibe of visually seeing. Lorien looked like a dream.
Right.
But it looked also like dark
Sparkly
in there, like
almost.
all the time. I want to see it in the daytime, unless they're so in the forest that it's dark all the time.
Maybe. Elves do love starlight.
But Mirkwood looked a little spoopy to get there, but then when you got in there, it was like a bustling, like well-to-do elf realm. You know what I mean? Like it was like a functioning city, I would say.
Sure.
Plus Thranduil and Legolas.
Thranduil, right? Yeah. So, I mean, would you say that Rivendell and Lorien are superior to the Grey Havens and Greenwood?
It's hard to say because you don't hear a lot about the other 2. Like you don't hear a lot about
True. Yeah.
the Grey Havens, and you only hear more about Mirkwood in The Hobbit.
Right.
I don't know. It's hard to give it a fair chance when there isn't that much to go on, when there's so much about Rivendell. You know what I mean? So Rivendell's obviously top for me.
Sure. Well, you know, in my opinion, and as they are kind of written here, Rivendell and Lorien are by far the most beautiful, more magical, and they're also kind of more preserved. Quote, thus it was in 2 domains, the bliss and beauty of the elves remained still undiminished. So in those 2 domains, that was where elfdom kind of stayed. The rest of Middle Earth could be men, dwarves, both, but there is where the true essence of being an elf kind of stayed. Now, why do you think those 2 realms were like that? Is Elrond a better leader than Thranduil? Is Galadriel better than Círdan? Like, I don't think that's necessarily the case.
No, I think maybe they, you know, it's like with anybody, like how they're raised kind of goes forth. They are a leader of people, like they're going to put forth those values of, you know, things like that. And so you can tell with Elrond, who saved all that history and all that stuff, that he took it very seriously. And he was like, this is special to me. I chose to be an elf. Like I had a choice. Not everybody has a choice. I actually did.
Right.
No one else has had a choice except me and my brother. And I chose to be an elf. So this is very serious and special to me. But also I know that as an elf, I have that kind of like, not responsibility, but like as being the first, not firstborn, but first race of beings that were on Middle Earth, that he kind of has that, like, he knows that the elves kind of have like a parental, like, we have to make sure everything else is running okay. Like everybody else is like, okay, we're not going to like take care of them, but we feel that kind of like responsibility. I feel him and Galadriel feel that. That's me personally, but I think that Thranduil kind of had more of that, like, I mean, this is what I've just read from the books and things like that. He might have had a better side that I don't know of, but he kind of had that like selfishness, like we're better than you.
It's almost like
we're
Elrond and Galadriel were like the oldest child, and Thranduil was the youngest child.
Yeah, like, I'm better than you. I deserve these things. Why are you even asking me these things?
Sense of entitlement.
I will never help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not only that aspect of their personalities that made the realms better, but they actually had a secret advantage over Thranduil and Círdan. Quote, of the 3 rings that the elves had preserved unsullied, no open word was ever spoken among the wise, and few even of the Eldar knew where they were bestowed. Yet, after the fall of Sauron, their power was ever at work, and where they abode, their mirth also dwelt, and all things were unstained by the griefs of time.
Wow.
So doesn't that sound like something that might be useful in keeping an elf realm unstained from orcs or other griefs?
It's true. You don't really see orcs kind of getting in there in this day and age of this. They usually go and attack those sad little humans and the sad, the pathetic little mortals.
Yeah. Quote, therefore, ere the third age was ended, the elves perceived that the ring of sapphire was with Elrond in the fair valley of Rivendell, upon whose house the stars of heaven most brightly shone. And you know why the stars of heaven brightly shone?
It's his dad?
It was his daddy.
Mom?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if his mom technically counts as that, but his daddy was up there. So yes, he has.
You ever think he sees a bird? Wait, does he know his mom can turn into a bird?
I don't know how much he knows about what happens to his parents, to be honest.
But it's like those movies where like somebody gets turned into an animal.
Keeps looking at me.
Is it winking at me? You know those like movies where like somebody gets turned into an animal for some reason, and then like the other character who's still human is like looking at this like pigeon or something. He's like, Jeff, Jeff? Are you just a normal pigeon? Like, do you think Elrond ever does that with birds? Like, Mom? No. Mom?
And then Monway could just mess with him whenever he wants to, I'm sure. Just send random birds to his house. So Elrond has the Ring of Sapphire, a.k.a. Vilya, a.k.a. the Ring of Air. And just a reminder, it is a golden ring set with a blue sapphire. And it was said to be the mightiest and possibly the powers of healing, which is kind of why that ends up being Elrond's thing with healing Frodo when he's in Rivendell. Originally, remember, these rings were made in Eregion by Celebrimbor. And then these 3 rings were the ones that Celebrimbor made only by himself. Sauron had no magic evil glitter with these ones. And then once he figured out what was happening with Sauron, he sent these 3 away. Well, this ring was originally given to High King Gil-galad, but after the founding of Rivendell, he gave it to Elrond. So by the end of the Third Age, Elrond had worn this ring for nearly 5,000 years.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Can you imagine the tan that he would have had on that ring finger? Or the callus. The callus that was there.
Like, are you going to get it off?
It's actually, he couldn't take it off. That's why.
Yeah.
These darn knuckles.
That's like great food in Rivendell.
Oh, yeah. Do they have any chips? Quote, whereas the Ring of Adamant was in the land of Lorien, where dwelt the Lady Galadriel. So the Ring of Adamant, Nenya, the White Ring, remember it was mounted with a single diamond. It possibly had the powers of preservation and concealment from evil. So that's kind of maybe another reason why the realms stayed as clean as they did.
Whoa. And that's why she could like sneak around. I always felt like she just like appeared, like in the Hobbit movies when like she just like showed up. She just showed up to save Gandalf, and you're like, whoa, where'd she come from?
Or Frodo, or when she's talking to Gandalf, she disappears. So those are the 2 rings. And then we have one more ring. Quote, "But the red ring remained hidden until the end, and none save Elrond and Galadriel and Círdan knew to whom it had been committed." So secret ring.
Secret.
So now we know at least part of the reason why Lorien and Rivendell thrived and remained as beautiful and undisturbed as they did. And it was, not that their rulers were better necessarily, but they did have these 2 elven rings of power, and were able to use the power of those rings to protect and preserve their realms.
They had a ringer, if you will.
I like it. So this time period is known as, quote, "the fading years, and in them the last flowering of the elves east of the sea came to its winter. Many things of beauty and wonder remained on earth in that time, and many things also of evil and dread. Orcs there were, and trolls, and dragons, and fell beasts, and strange creatures, old and wise in the woods, whose names are forgotten."
Okay, I'll tell you one thing really fast because we're coming close to the end of this, but I'm so sad that I wish that we saw more like different animals because they have like I don't feel like Tolkien made crazy weird animals that like aren't already here in our Earth. You know what I mean? Like
werewolves?
No, I'm saying like he wasn't making like Avatar looking like things that you're like, oh, I don't even know what that is. Like an Oliphant is just a huge giant elephant. Like, you know what I mean? Like we can kind of correlate it to something we've already seen in our real life. I wish we got to see more of that. Like I want to see a herd of those gigantic elk that are like huge and majestic looking. I think that'd be so cool. And then I also want to see more than one dragon. We only get to see one dragon. And then we only get to see the fell beast things that the Nazgul, we only get to see like one of those.
Right.
But then there was something else. Oh, like the crazy like squid thing, octopus.
Right.
Kraken thing. I'm like, I wanted to see more like cool creatures that would be in Middle Earth.
That water thing that was in the Rings of Power show, that made no sense to me, but
the like sea monster, whatever. Yeah. Or the like the dogs that the orcs ride on,
the wargs,
like the crazy, the wargs. Like stuff like that where I'm like, I want to see cool animals. Give me more of those. You know?
Yeah. Maybe in season 2 of Rings of Power. We'll find out. So basically they're saying like during this time period, there are still lots of beautiful things, maybe where the elf realms were, but let's not forget that there are still orcs and dragons and other bad things out there. Quote, "Dwarves still labored in the hills and wrought with patient craft works of metal and stone that none now can rival. But the dominion of men was preparing, and all things were changing until at last the Dark Lord arose in Mirkwood again."
In Mirkwood?
Yes. So our Greenwood the Great.
How did he get over there?
Our Greenwood the Great has changed. So remember, after his ring was cut off, he became the spirit that was just kind of wandering around. But he's a wandering spirit. He doesn't have a body yet. He's too weak to have a body. But he has to find a place to rest and gain his strength. And that's going to be in the Greenwood the Great forest, sadly. Because our Greenwood the Great is now transforming into Mirkwood here. Quote, "But after many years, a darkness crept slowly through the wood from the southward, and fear walked there in shadowy glades. Fell beasts came hunting, and cruel and evil creatures laid there their snares. Then the name of the forest was changed, and Mirkwood it was called, for the nightshade lay deep there, and few dared to pass through, save only in the north, where Thranduil's people still held the evil at bay. Whence it came few could tell, and it was long ere even the wise could discover it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I didn't send you this map, but if you were to imagine a map of Mirkwood, the Greenwood the Great, imagine a oval, and Thranduil is at the top, and Dol Guldur, mentioned in the Hobbit movies, is in the south.
Dol Guldur.
And that's where all of this, yes, that's where the necromancer is and stuff in the Hobbit movies. So,
Spoopy place.
first of all, yeah. So first of all, let's talk about King Thranduil here for a second. We don't get to hear a lot about him here, but can you imagine him with an elf ring of power?
Uh-oh.
Do you think he ever felt left out that he didn't get one? Maybe that's why he had such an attitude that he did.
Yeah. Maybe that's why he's got such a tune.
Yeah. Second of all, in the Hobbit movies, it shows these gigantic and terrifying spiders encroaching on his realm. And he just thinks that they're just like a random nuisance. Like Tauriel even says in the movie, sorry, I know she's not in the book. I understand this. Tauriel even wants to go and kill them at their source. And he's like, nah, like, where did he think they came from? And why is his forest all of a sudden getting all spooky? Like, man, kids these days, they just trash up forests. You know, I'm just going to stay in my little kingdom over here and just, you know, not even worry about it. It's fine. It's fine. It's just a phase. Yeah.
It's like, hey, you know what? I gotta side with him on the spider thing. I get spiders in my house, and I don't know where they're coming from. And I'm just like, nah,
but
get out of here.
If you had a bad A warrior saying like, hey, why don't we go kill them at their source? You'd be like, sure. And he's like, nah, it's fine. It'll blow over. Evil spiders are just a dime a dozen.
Gross.
Yeah. But, you know, of course, it could only have been one person. Although person might be a strong word. Quote, it was the shadow of Sauron and the sign of his return. For coming out of the wastes of the east, he took up his abode in the south of the forest. And slowly he grew and took shape there again. In a dark hill he made his dwelling and wrought there his sorcery, and all folk feared the sorcerer of Dol Guldur, and yet they knew not at first how great was their peril. Like, I have a really hard time with this, like, this ignorance. Like, how many sorcerers are around at this time? Like, how many other possibilities? Like, you know, it could be any one of number of these. I saw a sorcerer the other day who looked kind of shady. Like, how many sorcerers? Like, it had to be Sauron. Like, who else could it have been? And in the movie, they talk about, like,
there's not a very long list.
How many? That's my point. Like, I feel like they automatically go to, oh, it's just a random sorcerer guy, instead of, hey, how about the obvious choice that Sauron is back, guys? Like, nah, it's probably just a random guy that is also evil. It's fine.
Is that Dave the sorcerer? Dave? No? I miss him every year.
Like, I know we are looking at
the show.
Like, I know we're looking at this like hindsight's 2020, but like, really? Like, that wasn't the first, like, thing that they thought of.
Yeah. It's like in Harry Potter where
I thought about
Voldemort, and they're like, no, it's not. And they're like, well, yeah. Explain all this horrible stuff happening with some other person. It's Voldemort.
It's Sirius Black.
It's Sirius Black. I don't think it is.
Yeah.
So.
But thank goodness there were others. There were others who thought it could be Sauron, and they actually did do something about it, thank goodness. Quote, even as the first shadows were felt in Mirkwood, there appeared in the west of Middle-earth the Istari, whom men called the Wizards. None knew at that time whence they were, save Círdan of the Havens, and only to Elrond and to Galadriel did he reveal that they came over the sea.
They came over the sea? Like from
Right?
Valinor?
Yeah. Yes. So
wizards from Valinor?
Uh-huh. Like, can you imagine Círdan? Basically, he's like a theme park ride attendant at this point. He's just putting all these bored of Middle-earth elves onto ships, sending them off to Valinor, like, please make sure your seatbelt is tightly fastened. Please keep all arms and legs inside the boat as you sail to the lovely island of Valinor. Just over and over again on repeat. Like the same thing for centuries. I don't know if the ships like came back empty somehow, or Valinor just has like a plethora of like pleasure barges at this point. But like maybe they did come back. I don't know. But
please pull up on your lap bar and take all your personal belongings with you when you exit the boat.
But then one day, Círdan sees a ship coming back. He's like, "What the?" And there's actually people on it. Like, can you imagine
like going through his handbook? He's like, wait a minute, hold on. What
do I do?
What's to happen?
What do I do? I have to consult with my manager. Where's the manager? Oh wait, that's me. Oh crap.
I need an adult. Wait, I'm the oldest person here. Dang it.
Quote, but afterwards it was said among the elves that they were messengers sent by the lords of the West to contest the power of Sauron, if he should rise again, and to move elves and men and all living things of goodwill to valiant deeds. So they're basically like cheerleaders sent to Middle-earth for the elves and men and other living good things. Like, make good choices. Like, come on. We're going to keep an eye on Sauron, but you guys, that's like a Jiminy Crickets. Like, I'm just going to be your conscience and keep an eye on you guys. And we'll see how that works out for them next week, because I'm actually going to leave you here today.
Oh, what? We get mystery ship wizards and you leave me here? Dang it.
I do.
Well, thanks for teaching me today.
You're welcome. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Sisters of the Shire Podcast. Become a patron and join our Patreon at patreon.com/Sisters of the Shire Podcast. Remember, that is the only way that you will be part of our trivia episode that we are going to do at the end of all of this. So be sure to sign up so we can contact you and get it all figured out. You can join our dwarf friend of the Shire, Dan, or our elf friends of the Shire, Christian and Tom. There's also, I think, men and women friends of the Shire too, if you want to join that tier. Each tier is different. Each tier has different things, but we'll take whatever support you are willing to give, and we appreciate everything that you guys can do to support us. Yes.
Even if it's just sharing this and suggesting to friends and family, like, hey, you guys, if you like this, you guys should listen to this. And, we're family friendly, we're clean, we can pretty much share us with anybody.
Yeah.
Also, other incentives for a Patreon is if you have a small business and you want a shout out of free advertising for your business.
Or you're an artist.
That's a tier incentive on one of the tiers on our Patreon. So stuff like that. So if that interests you, or if you have another podcast we can give a shout out to, that works as well.
Yeah.
We also love any interaction on Instagram or answering questions on our Spotify questions and giving us ratings and reviews and all that stuff. We love that stuff.
We did get a new rating on Spotify. Thank you for whoever did that.
Yay.
And I know I don't think Spotify lets you actually give a worded review, but I think Apple does, or other. I'm not sure if Google, I don't think Google does, but I think Apple does. So if you want to make our day, like some people have in the past, leave us a review. Let people know what we're all about.
A happy, positive review, please.
Yes, we are fragile beings. We did get a new country.
Okay, my guess is I'm going to go rogue. I'm going to say Africa.
No.
Dang it.
Even more rogue.
Africa. Southeast Asia.
No.
Antarctica?
It's like America, but central.
Central
Or it might be South.
America.
I'm trying to remember now.
Latin.
I Googled it and I don't remember.
Latin America. Latin America somewhere.
It is El Salvador.
That is central. It would be considered central, I feel.
Okay, I thought so.
What?
So thank you,
Salvador.
listener from El Salvador. Sorry, we can't say it any other way.
El Salvador, man. El Salvador. Your guys' food in El Salvador? I am hungry. So
send Abby some recipes is basically what she's asking.
Yes, please.
So welcome and thank you for joining us. We did have a bit of world domination. Looks like Dan took back 8th place. He took it away from Norway. Shots fired, Dan.
Whoa. Dan took over Norway. Good job, Dan.
Yes, he did. And then Brazil took over Spain.
Whoa.
Yes. Overthrowing
the Spaniards.
I don't know what the words are. The Spaniards. Thank you. Man. So
I know too
keep
many
it up,
Spaniards.
guys.
I watched my children watch Princess Bride in the car 3 times in a row when we were driving somewhere, and we were in the car for like 10 hours. And it's like the only movie that I can just listen to and be fine with because I was driving, so I couldn't watch it. So I was just listening to it. So I've been doing that. It's no good. I know too many Spaniards.
It's a very quotable movie. Well, that's all I got for you today. Until next week,
I've been Abby.
And I've been Ashley.
And this has been the Sisters of the Shire podcast. And we're so glad you're here. And we hope that you join us next time. Bye.
Bye.